Happy Thanksgiving. For today we're going to talk about installing a laundry room sink. First step is to measure, make sure everything's going to fit. So we wanted to make sure 22 inches wide by 18 inches deep fits into the space we have. Second most important thing is make sure you got long enough water lines. I got the longest possible, 20 inches. Anything longer than that's a bit hard to manage. And so first step, we'll go ahead and open up the box and pull everything out and do the assembly before we take out the old or the existing laundry room sink. Of course, be careful with your blade. I'm sure there'll be lots of extra stuff to throw away once we take this all apart. This will be one of our many home improvement videos, but we're also going to start focusing on model trains next week and show you how to put foam on top of the layout board. But for today we're going to do laundry room sink, and I'm recording it by two different types of cameras, so hopefully between the two I'll post both and you guys can tell me which ones you like the best. One is basically taped to my head and the other one is stationary for the cameras. So, lots of good packaging to keep product safe. Just throw that all in there. And of course the very detailed instructions, which we'll go through. And we'll put together the cabinet and the faucet before we install. And we'll get started on that in a second once we finish unpacking. Again, be careful with your knife. Don't want to cut yourself. You don't want to cut your new sink up. We're just doing that for now. Later on we'll break it up into recyclables and non-recyclables, but for right now we're just putting it all in there in one spot. This is the accessory box where I'm sure they have the faucet and then other needed hardware. Sorry if this is boring as we go, but I'm kind of learning as we do it. So hopefully the first few videos of mine are not as bad as the ones that come later on. So just bear with me and give me suggestions on best cameras to use and best ways to take shots. I know some of my fellow YouTubers do everything via phone. I can do that, but it gets a little difficult with some of the projects that we want to do. So that's why I use a stationary camera and a camera strapped to my head. So as wonderful as that sounds. So looks like a pretty simple installation. One piece faucet. So I'm sure the tricky bit is going to be putting that through the hole. Careful not to scratch anything. You won't be able to get that through the hole. I'm sure we'll have to take it apart. Excuse me. And then here is the drain that goes together down in the center of the sink. And then the faucet goes there. So I'm sure we'll have to take this piece apart in order to feed everything down. And then there should be some way to clamp it all in place, which it looks like this piece is here, this washer with this nut. So I'm probably going to pause the cameras for a second while I try and figure out the next best camera angle. Or not. And then we'll keep going. So this is where everything is going to come through. This is all the hoses. So they left them finger tight. So I'm going to take that apart. Takes a few seconds to loosen it, and as you notice, they put cold as in blue, and hopefully you can see that red is hot. I'm not sure what that fourth one is, but we'll figure that out in a second. That attaches there to make a nice seal. So then the other thing we'll have to do is we'll have to take this apart. So I'm going to grab a screwdriver to do that. It's a Phillips. Phillips is the crosshead, so you can see that. So we'll take that apart real quick. Hopefully you don't have to loosen it all the way to get this off. And I guess the other clever thing to do, though they don't say, is we should probably measure how far down that weight is mounted so we can put it back in the same exact position. So it's mounted at 14 inches. So we slide that down because that won't fit through the hole. And unfortunately we'll have to keep on loosening the screws in order to fit it through. Okay, so we had to take it all apart. I'll put the parts there so we hold on to them. So now we can feed everything through the hole. Oh, once we take the nut off, slide the nut all the way off, and then we take this off, this washer. So then we feed it through. One connector at a time, otherwise it won't fit. So now everything's through. And just to double check, they do have an O-ring there, just to make sure it seals properly. So you want to line up the head, because that's how it's going to stay when you tighten it. So then you Put this specialty washer back in place. And you just try and slide it all the way up in there. As tight as you can. So it's flush. The next step is to take the washer they gave you, or the nut, I'm sorry. Put that all the way up. And hand tighten that as tight as you can. And to be quite honest, because of the tight fit there is, I'd be really impressed if you can get a wrench in there. So you're going to have to hand tighten it as tight as you can. There are special wrenches that you can use to get up inside there. So now I just hand tightened it. So now you can see this is the cold water, the other one's the hot water, and then very cleverly this is the one that attaches to this. And so what we're going to do next is get that attached. And what they show us on there, I'm going to bring the camera down so you can see. I apologize. Sorry if it's a bit jerky. But you can see they have another O-ring on there. The camera's having a little bit of a hard time focusing, so again I apologize. So hopefully here you can see the O-ring is where they left it. So we're going to take the tie off. Cable tied off, remove the washer because we need that to make a nice tight seal. So we put that in there. And of course gravity doesn't want to work with us today, so I'm just going to place it on top of the fitting. And again, hand tighten it. So everything's been hand tightened. Cabinet's got some levelers on it, which is now is not the right time to level it because we're not in the room where we're installing it. But those are attached. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the water connections, because it's going to be easier to do it here than it will be once it's in place. So water connections have O-rings in them already, so that's how they'll attach. Remove the labels. So the first one goes in. That's going to be the cold.